Hi, it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel, where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own personal struggles, having borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. I talk about narcissism and my narcissistic mother. I talk about schizophrenia, and I wrote a memoir, Life with My Schizophrenic Father. I also talk about my unethical psychologist who sexually abused me and exploited me, who I had affairs with over the years, and a plethora of other mental health related topics. But I only come on as a former patient of almost 20 years. I am not a licensed therapist. I do not hold a degree in psychology, so I cannot diagnose you. And all I expect in turn of you is please your kindness in the comments. Kindness and respect, please, always. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. Stick around, take a chance. The links to all my books here that I've written over 36 books, memoirs, psychology books about therapy and my unethical therapist, and my life growing up borderline with a schizophrenic father, a narcissistic mother, and a brain-damaged son. Those are all available on Amazon, and the links to those books are down below. Also, you can feel free to buy me a cup of coffee to support my channel, and I want to thank someone who bought me a $4.99, $5, let's round it up, cup of coffee recently. Oh my God, I was so deeply touched. It was the first subscriber who ever extended themselves out to help support my channel. As you know, I have a horrid cold. I haven't slept in days. I got my handy dandy tissue because yesterday I was wiping with I was just going like this with my hand, and I said, that's really not, ladylike or very healthy to be doing that. So today I'm going to talk about affairs, okay? If you've read these books or you've watched my other videos, you know that I had a 2-year sexual affair with my psychologist, Dr. 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗏𝗲. And I wrote about it in Love Outside the Boundaries. And also I wrote about it in Sexually Exploited by 3 Psychologists. And also in this book. This book is all emails that he wrote me. But I also had an affair with Dr. Richard Geist, which is in this book, Love Bombed by a Harvard Psychologist. Now, I did not have sex at all with Dr. Richard Geist, although I sat in his lap and I touched his penis and I laid all over him on the floor, and we were physical, and he held me. I did not kiss him. I did not have sex with him. Unlike with Dr. 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗏𝗲, it was a physical relationship of oral sex, intercourse, the works, It was a physical, sexual affair. But this video, I'm going to talk about the damage an emotional affair can have. It had just as much, if not more, damage than the sexual, physical affair I had with Dr. 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗏𝗲. We're going to call Dr. 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗏𝗲𝗲 Jim. That's his real name. And we're going to call Dr. Richard Geist Dick. That's what he goes by. And please excuse me for speaking. I can't breathe, so I sound very nasally. So please forgive me for that. I wanted to do this video despite the fact that I can barely talk. So, most people don't even understand what an emotional affair is. Most people think that an affair is having sex with someone outside of marriage. Someone who's married to someone else. A single person having sex with a married person. Or if you're dating someone, if you're involved with someone and you have a sexual relationship with someone else, like you're having an affair. Mostly affairs are with married people, I was married and living with my husband and son, And I had a 2-year sexual affair with a divorced man who was not my husband. That's what people consider affairs. But what happened with Richard 𝗖𝗁 was not like that. It was an emotional affair, and this is what I want to concentrate on. Emotional affairs are when you get very deep and intimate with someone emotionally. This psychologist was just as traumatized me, just as bad as Jim, who had sex with me. Of course, Jim also got physically violent with me, pushed me around, spit in my face, and verbally and emotionally abused me. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to talk about the emotional affair I had with Dr. Richard 𝗖𝗁. Emotional affairs don't even seem like affairs to begin with. You start confiding in a person of the opposite sex instead of confiding in your spouse or other significant partner. You start telling them intimate details of your life. I knew intimate details about Dr. Richard 𝗖𝗁's life. I knew that his mother went into a very deep depression when her husband was away overseas during the war. He was away for months. She had a stillborn. She gave birth to a stillborn child, and her husband wasn't there, and she went into a deep depression. I knew he told me when his father got a stroke and was hospitalized. He called me late at night and told me when his wife had breast cancer. So he's confiding in his patient very deep and intimate details of his personal life. And this is something that grows an emotional affair. There was a deep emotional attachment with Dick, much more deeper than there was with Jim. Even though it was physical, sexual with Jim, it was physical with Dick too. I was physically inappropriate. These were psychologists. I wasn't supposed to be sitting in their lap or touching their penis or laying all over the floor with them or giving Dick a back massage, But what made me turn into an alcoholic was both of these psychologists at once re-traumatizing me over. And the emotional affair was just as bad, if not even worse, than the sexual affair that I had with Jim. Now, you might be married and you might think that you're not doing anything wrong or you're not harming anyone when you're with someone of the opposite sex. It might be a woman at work. A lot of emotional affairs happen at the office or wherever you work. It could be a hospital, whatever job you have. It could be a university. An emotional affair starts out, and a lot of emotional affairs lead to sexual affairs, but they start out first as emotional affairs. And you confide in that person. Your spouse might even know about that person. You might tell your spouse, and you might kid yourself and say, well, we're just friends. It's just a friendship. I'm not, sleeping with them. I'm not having sex with them. But you're being very intimate and vulnerable. You're being vulnerable. When you open up yourself to someone and share intimate details of your life, you are being very vulnerable. That is much more harmful than if you were to meet someone at a bar, okay? Didn't know anything about them. Maybe you might know their first name. Get back and, have sex with them at their place and then leave. There's no emotional ties. There's no feelings involved. They don't know nothing about you, and vice versa. People can forgive that much, much more easily. Or if it's just someone, you kind of like fuck on the side, Like whenever you're out of town for business and you hook up with this person, it's just a release, a sexual release. But there's no intimacy. You don't care about them. You don't share personal details about your life. People can get over that much more easily than if someone is emotionally attached, having an emotional affair. Now, I never really recognized the fact that I had an emotional affair with Dick. I kept going to other therapists and talking about what happened in the therapy with Dick. And other therapists kept telling me, that's not therapy. You weren't doing therapy. Well, if I wasn't doing therapy, what the fuck was I doing all that time? In the beginning, 5 hours a week for 2 years. 5 hours a week I was in this room fooling around with this man, and he told me deep, intimate things about his life. He brought me into his workshop and showed me, because he was like a carpenter, he made desks, he made couches, he made his dining room set all by, using his own hands, his woodworking, end tables. He would do this, and he'd bring me in and he'd show me that. We'd go in and we'd hold each other outside of sessions. I went to the park with him, laid in the grass with him at a public park, like 5 minutes from his house. And I wrote that in this book. And he confided in me very deep. He called me the day his first grandchild was born. He called me on a Saturday and left me a message on my answer machine that his grandchild was born, and I sent him a big basket, a big baby basket with, I don't know, balloons and baby and teddy bears, and, like a gift basket to his house that very same day. So his wife complained about me. His wife knew that we had an inappropriate relationship. And that's when he started pulling back from me and like breaking away from me. He stopped seeing me. He stopped returning my phone calls. He stopped emailing me. He wouldn't allow me to touch him anymore. That's when he started pulling away from me, because his wife was smart and knew that something was going on between me and Dick that shouldn't have been happening. And this is when I first started drinking vodka. It wasn't just with Jim. Of course, I always said that Dick was the fire and Jim was the gasoline, all right, on what happened to me. I was re-traumatized twice. Once with Dick, he started the fire, and then Jim just dumped the gasoline, and, the whole thing went, it blew up into an inferno. So the emotional affair was as devastating, if not more devastating, than the sexual affair I had. And because I never was in love before. The two men I've been in love with in my life are my psychologists, Dr. Richard Geist, Dick, and Dr. James Barbaria, Jim. I never was in love before these men, and I never been in love after these men. And I never, before Dick, I never ever had any any of those kind of feelings for a man in my life. Both of these men were much older than me. Dick was 22 years older than me. So I was like 40 and he was in his 60s when I first met him. And it was like love at first sight. I walked in and it was like, I just knew. I looked at him, and he didn't want me to leave. After the 50 minutes, he said, first of all, the first session went almost 2 hours. Then he wanted me to come back later that day, and it was just crazy. He just, and the way that he confided in me and told me about his past history. He told me about his past relationships with women. He told me about his first girlfriend in high school, Stephanie. He told me about his other sexual relationships. He told me about when he went out with his teacher to pick out underwear. His teacher asked him to come along on a shopping trip to pick out female panties. That's not appropriate. And he told me a lot of intimate details about his life. And I grew, I became ensconced with him. Okay, this is how an emotional affair is. I became enmeshed with him. And I'm his patient, okay? But when you have an emotional affair, people think that sex is the ultimate intimate way to be with someone of the opposite sex, but it really isn't, okay? Without that emotional component, sex is just, getting off. I'm sorry, I'm very blunt, but without that emotional component, sex is nothing. It's just, you might as well masturbate. It's just like getting off. That's it. Without the emotional component. And, he really, I feel like he felt used by him, that, like, he called my house late at night telling me about his wife, and I was shaken very badly. I couldn't sleep because he told me she had breast cancer, and of course I sent her a big gift basket and a card and everything, and she probably had to be wondering, why is her husband telling his patient something very intimate? I mean, he told me a lot of intimate details about his wife. He told me when she had to have surgery because her intestines got twisted. He told me when they thought she had uterine cancer because she was bleeding. I mean, intimate things that you would never tell a patient. This is an emotional affair. And we never did therapy. All we did was, it was a personal relationship. And like I was saying, how shaken up I was when I found out about his wife. I was badly shaken up. I couldn't sleep all night. I was up. My husband was holding me. And, my husband is saying, Dick should have never told you this because it's affecting me. He's dumping his problems onto a patient. Same way that 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗲𝗲 did too. But I didn't feel that deep emotional connection with Jim as much as I felt it with Dick. And I didn't know, like, the damage that an emotional affair could cause. It did. It really is, intense damage that I had from it. Now, I did not go after Dick legally. I went after both of the psychologists I went to and made licensing board complaints. In the last video, I told you I got $80,000 compensation because I went after him with a lawyer legally. I did not go after Dr. Richard Guy's Dick legally, though I could have. Because when you go after someone legally like that, there's a time limit on it. You can't wait. It's a 3-year window, which means you have to report what happened to you within that 3-year time limit. You can't wait like 5 or 10 years later to report it. And I never reported it. It would be too late. I was so ensconced with him and so enmeshed. An emotional affair is this enmeshment like this. It's an enmeshment of the heart, It's an enmeshment. It's much more enmeshed than just a penis in a vagina. It's enmeshed just like this with the person, like your heart and their heart, like co-joined. It's much more enmeshed than the physical aspect of a sexual relationship. So, and I was just so deep in the forest that I could not see the green at all. In the beginning, he love bombed me. That's the whole name of the book. Love Bombed by a Harvard Psychologist. Inviting me to his vacation home in Maine, having me come in his house, having me sit in his lap, allowing me to call his cell phone 24/7. I called him 2 o'clock in the morning on his summer vacation, waking him up out of a sound sleep. And you know what he said to me? Sandy, is that you? Half groggy? It's so good to hear your voice. Who would say that to someone at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking them out of a sound sleep on their vacation, no less? So it did a lot of damage to my family, especially to me. I turned into an alcoholic. So it's not harmless. Don't try to kid yourself. So many people kid themselves and say, we're just friends, okay? We're just friends. No, you're not just friends, and you know it. You can, slide down that slippery slope. If you're sharing intimate details of your life with someone other than your spouse, that's a very dangerous territory to get into. Very dangerous, okay? And I just want you to be aware of that. I want to come on to tell you about that. Even if you don't have sex at all, it's just as damaging, if not more damaging, than if you did have a sexual relationship. And, because you're enmeshed with that person. And it caused me a lot of harm, and I could not go after him legally, because this happened when we were like this, enmeshed. This happened in 2005 and 2006, those 2 years. When I went after Dick, when I made a board complaint, I did it in 2021. Okay, so I can't legally go after him for the what he did to me in 2005 and 6, because it's way past that window of opportunity to do that. Fortunately, I went after Jim before that window of opportunity closed up on me. So if you're going to do a demand letter or anything legally, you have to be careful about the time limit, the time limit that they give you. You can't just wait and be in retroactive do it. At least not with psychologists. I don't know about, I think it applies to other things too. But I would look into that and not wait. If you're going to do something, if you're going to take some action legally, then you best do it, immediately. Not sit on your hands, okay? So, yeah, emotional affairs are just as damning, if not more. And I'm just give you a heads up and a warning. That sure, men and women can be friends. I'm not saying, oh, you can't be friends, but be very, very careful how much you enmesh yourself, how much you reveal, how vulnerable, that's that key word, how vulnerable you make yourself to someone that is not your spouse, okay? Because it can be very damaging. And it was for me, and I just wanted to share that with you. All right, till next time, take care. Bye-bye.